Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. This is probably not going to be one of the nicer episodes of Billboard Breakdown, just so you're all forewarned. And those of you who follow the series probably know that already, because I've been calling this for a couple of weeks now. Well, my predictions all came true. And not only did we lose every single Prince song from the Hot 100, they all got replaced by Drake, including the #1 spot. And I'm gonna say this right now. Views has only become less interesting since I covered it a week or so back. And while you could cite that it's being my own fault, given that I've been listening steadily to Aesop Rock and Death Grips, it doesn't change the fact that the record is tedious, inconsistently produced, and increasingly badly written. And yet, the mainstream public, of course they jumped all over it, giving Drake the record number of Hot 100 entries. And yet, unlike Beyonce, I wouldn't expect a lot of these to really stick around, because most of them, they kinda suck. Oh, still got him as lead artist #1 though, so let's start off with the top 10. And look, I get why One Dance got him there. It's a pop crossover that features Drake delivering exactly no effort to murmur his way through a badly produced dancehall pastiche. But since that sound is big right now, it claimed the #1 spot on sales and streaming and picked up plenty of airplay despite having no YouTube video. And the second that comes, Drake could have that position on lock. Now, could Panda by Designer challenge it from #2 if it got a video first? Frankly, I doubt it. Drake already jumped past him on airplay gains and streaming, and sales weren't what they were. Then we have 7 Years by Lucas Graham at #3, which peaked in airplay this week, and even with respectable sales has been so thoroughly blocked from anything else that it's not getting any higher. What actually might last a little longer, much to my astonishment, is I Took a Pill in Ibiza by Mike Posner at #4, which went up there thanks to consistent airplay, okay sales, and surprisingly strong YouTube, which has been quietly picking up over the past couple of weeks. Nothing compared to Work From Home by Fifth Harmony and Ty Dolla $ign, though, rising up to #5 thanks to ruling YouTube and strong airplay, although sales gains are falling off rather slowly. The song with losses are hurting a lot more, though, is Work by Rihanna and Drake, convincing me that Drake's hype, it's tied to the album and will probably be short-lived, as this song, it was bleeding in all categories, even as it held on #6. Next up, we have a new top 10 entry, and one that actually surprised me a little bit, Don't Let Me Down by the Chainsmokers featuring Daya at #7. Also thanks to good airplay gains and sales, and as soon as Drake's streaming dominance fades, it'll probably pick up there as well. Pillow Talk by Zayn, on the other hand, might not be so lucky, as airplay gains slowed down to a crawl, and YouTube slipped as well as it recovered up to #8. Then we have our second new top 10 entry and a brand new song for this week, This Is What You Came For by Calvin Harris featuring Rihanna. And to answer that, no, I never come for Calvin Harris. He tends to drive me in the opposite direction, which we will be discussing later, but apparently the public doesn't agree with me because he spent the weeks running up the sales and airplay charts, as if we really needed more Calvin Harris in the world. Finally, we have Justin Bieber returning to the top 10 with Love Yourself at #10, well, because it has leftover airplay and YouTube. If Beyonce's Sorry gains more traction, expect the song to be replaced pretty much by next week, I'm guessing. Of course, we can't rely on that, so we have our losers and dropouts. And remember how I predicted those large-scale rivals would exacerbate chart collapses of mini tracks prematurely? Well, we had round 2 of that this week, because even with Prince evaporating from the charts after the sales vanished, there were still plenty more dropouts. The biggest dropouts I predicted from last week: Jumpman by Drake and Future, Back to Sleep by Chris Brown, Company by Justin Bieber, Acquainted by The Weeknd, and unfortunately, You Should Be Here by Cole Swindle. Even though an album release might have given it a little bit more momentum to actually stick around. Granted, country had a rough week regardless. Not only did That Didn't Sound Like You by Lee Brice drop out, Confession by Flora George Line fell down to 96, I Like the Sound of That by Rascal Flatts went down to 97, and, sadly, My Church by Maren Morris fell hard to 80. Then we had the losses that are a little bit easier to predict. Team by Iggy Azalea continues to flop at 88, Youth by Troye Sivan takes a nosedive down to 83, Promise by Kid Ink and Fetty Wap continues down to 91, and Kanye West's 2 songs Famous with Rihanna and Father Stretch My Hands Part 1 with Kid Cudi go to 95 and 98 respectively. Unfortunately, as I also expected, Beyonce also took some pretty big hits this week. Although I would argue without Drake rushing in, she could have held on to more longevity, and it didn't prevent songs like 6 Inch with The Weeknd from only falling to 28. It's still got sales and staying power. I expect that song to stick around. However, All Night went to 64, Freedom with Kendrick Lamar went to 65, Daddy Lesson slid down to 66, Pray You Catch Me went down to 70, Sandcastle slipped down to 71, and Love Drought dropped down to 73. Finally, we got the outlier. Summer 16 by Drake went to 89. The track that should have been on views becomes a casualty of its inevitable short-lived success. Oh, the irony. Now, as with last week, there weren't that many gains and re-entries, but we did get a few. As expected, the continued rise of Pink's bland return, Just Like Fire, went back up to 55, and Somewhere on a Beach by Dierks Bentley recovered hard to 41. I'm a little bit more surprised that Lost Boy by Ruth B regained its traction to 42, and that Let It Go by James Blake went back to 32. There really isn't much to either song. They don't really need that much momentum. I don't see the appeal. And of course, Pop Style by Drake got the big boost from the album and went up to 21. Joy. But the song that drew my curiosity the most was the returning entry at 29, My Boo by the Ghost Town DJs, which because of an Instagram Running Man challenge meme that unfortunately has nothing to do with the movie, has crossed over to Vine and got piled on by pretty much every one of the parts of the social media that goes crazy over asinine dance crazes. Wow, for the most part, I just do not care whatsoever, but I will note that this challenge has let it rechart higher than it originally did back in 1996, and that it's not a terrible dance pop-ish R&B track, so I'll let this slide. For now. And on that note, might as well get started with the newest round of the Drake Show for our long list of new arrivals that'll be a lot less interesting than the fun that when Beyonce was here, because at least she had a video to match up with each one, although this will probably be easier to edit. And can't you tell that I'm stalling here? Well, look, enough wasting time. Let's start off with number 86, Views by Drake.
And my wifey is a spice like I'm David Beckham. A lot of pent-up aggression coming out of my section. OVO on me while y'all niggas was playing dress up. And I know who gon' take it far with me. They right here on call with me, they all with me. You can throw curveballs, but I got the glove fitted. They been saying it's love, but it isn't love, is it?
So just like last week, I've already reviewed the album in detail, so I'm going to endeavor to keep all 16 of these new Drake entries fairly short, especially considering this record really did leave very little impact on me. That said, this is one of the better songs, opening with a decent gospel sample that builds to slightly more opulent production and swell. And Drake is actually rhyming on the song, although it's up for debate whether or not the thoughts he's expressing here are really too deep for a therapist, especially when it's very much his lane of surreptitiously attacking rivals without naming names and bragging. But there are 3 lines that do draw some attention for me. The first being that Drake never compromised for sales. No, you just did that to get a #1 single. I know what you're doing here, Drake. That we wouldn't believe more of his life story. Well, you could try telling us that one of these days instead of this maddening vagueness, and if I was you, I wouldn't like me either. The one element is self-awareness before this track fades into atmospherics for the final minute. And while that line is definitely true about most of the rest of this album, in context of the song, it feels incredibly disconnected outside of just referring to jealousy, which kind of undercuts the whole pseudo-gospel vibe. You think Drake would aim better. Actually, you wouldn't think that, but in other words, it's a decent song, but man, it's got some problems. Number 75, Fire and Desire by Drake.
Fulfill all your desires. Keep you in the front, never in the back, and never on the side. You're a real ass woman and I like it, I don't wanna fight it.
Oh, look, don't get me wrong, I dig the minimalist buzz, the instrumentation, the bass-heavy punch, even if the pitch-shifted vocals do drive me up the wall. But Drake, at this point, it's been 5 years since Moment for Life. If you haven't screwed Nicki Minaj by now, it's not gonna happen, especially after the video for Anaconda and the song Only back in 2014. No matter how many desaturated, sloppy ballads you make. I'm gonna like this a little bit more than before, but saying you got Z's for those other girls sleeping on them, yeah, I get why Nicki was not interested in you. Next, number 74, True Colors by Zedd and Kesha.
True colors. No, I won't apologize for the fire in my eyes. Let me show you my true colors. It ain't your rainbow.
We're now gonna take a short break from the Drake Show to talk about something that I haven't seen in a long time, a Kesha song in the Hot 100. Okay, to be fair here, it's not really a Kesha track. She didn't write it, and it's actually a remix of a song that Zedd already made back in 2015 for his album. And I wouldn't say it's one of his best songs either. On the other hand, Kesha sounds great on it. She's always had a talent for melancholic electropop that her singles in her heyday never really recognized, even if I do feel her vocals are a little bit too compressed here. Hell, even though I don't think this song is destined to be huge on the charts, Zedd's production is a little bit too muted to really really explode for me, even despite the gleaming keys, roiling drums, and bells building to that minor key crescendo. It is proof that Kesha still has far more charisma and raw power than so many modern pop acts these days. Not the sort of killer material that Kesha's delivered in the past, it's no Die Young, but if this is what we need for a modest revitalization, I'm definitely gonna take it. It's a pretty damn good song. Number 72, Faithful by Drake featuring Pimp C and Division.
You just tryna be somebody, for you say you need somebody. Get all your affairs in order. I won't have affairs, I'm yours, girl. Faithful, 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 faithful.
I can't be the only one who's kind of uncomfortable with that sampled Pimp C verse being here, right? The legend is dead, and when you sample a verse where he specifically says he only works with Bun B, his partner, and that rapper's nowhere to be seen on the track, you've crossed the line of bad taste yet again, Drake. Regardless, this song then proceeds to swamp out the bass, Drake proceeds to fall off the beat on the hook, and imply that the girl's suspicions about him cheating are lodged firmly in her vagina. Women like this guy again? It's not a good sign when Division is the only thing worth caring about in their earnest and pretty powerful delivery that doesn't remotely fit in with anything else of the song, and even then the writing is only okay. As a whole though, this track is a complete mess. Next, number 68, Keep the Family Close by Drake.
Guess I should've tried to keep my family closer, much closer. All of my let's just be friends, friends I don't have anymore. Guess it's what they say you need family for, 'cause I can't depend on you anymore.
You know, there was some promise to this as the opener. The atmospherics that lead to this lush piano and horn-touched opener as Drake laments all the friends that he's had to leave behind, full of all the tortured metaphors that he pushes to their absolute limits. That Chrysler-Bentley metaphor, the fooding serving them line, as he says his friends were supposed to put their pride aside and ride with him. What are you asking them to put their pride aside for, Drake? What are you asking them to do? And sure, there are points that hit with some impact, the blast of horns and the organ texture for the second verse, but it's not like Drake is singing with any real passion here, or the mix hits with any real depth beyond the one deeper drum line, or the mix doesn't fade into atmosphere, so the outro that doesn't really go anywhere. Again, this track should be a lot better, and yet somehow it just isn't. Sorry. Number 63, Don't Mind by Kent Jones.
I said bonjour my da. Then she says I boss it, and I said nah bullet. No matter where I go, you know I love them all. She said hola como esta. She said konnichiwa. She said pardon my French. I said bonjour my da. Then she says I boss it, and I said nah bullet. No matter where I go, you know I love them all.
We now take our second short break from the Drake Show to talk about a protege of DJ Khaled. Seriously. Well, okay, maybe that's not quite fair, as apparently he's a trained jazz pianist who wanted to become a music professor and got to start working behind the scenes as a producer. And this is his breakout single, interpolating a melody from Barry White's Practice What You Preach on the hook. So fitting for a song with a grand tradition of screwing foreign girls. To quote him, they give him desktop till he overloads, and giving them license to cheat on their boyfriends by saying, well, your man don't speak English, so how would he know? And accompany those god-awful lines, we have a minimalist DJ Mustard-esque synth loop with some faded synth and cymbals, and a frontman who sings to a track with some insufferable smugness. And that's saying something given that I have 12 more Drake songs to cover. Next, number 61, Redemption by Drake.
To say to you, please give me time, 'cause I'm searching for these words to say to you. Oh, please give me time, 'cause I'm searching for these words to say to you right now. Redemption's on your mind when you think about.
We're now heading into a part of Drake's views that I actually kind of like, starting off with Redemption, a very minimalist song with a muted bassy tap and warped filters around the hook to somewhat the non-melody of the song. But really, the song is more about Drake's words as he starts delving into his own bad relationship habits as he yearns for real affection and searches for the right words to earn redemption. Apparently, none of those words was an apology because he feels that he's entitled to those for Christmas on the final verses. He wonders if those exes still think about him, and in a welcome moment of self-awareness, he realizes that he's probably never going to be forgiven by them. He's not going to get his redemption. I still don't like the victim complex underscoring the song, and the production is borderline non-existent, but you know what? It works for what it is. I'll take it. Number 54, Weston Road Flows by Drake.
Back when we couldn't buy pizza cause we were down to pennies. Feel like we go back a century, run to the store for centuries. Then bring it back to your brother, man, we had to respect it. He was wavy doing mixtapes out of your basement. He let us hit the weed on occasion for entertainment. Then he would leave us at the house and go out on a mission. We probably would've got in less trouble just going with him.
Probably the best song on views thanks to a flip Mary J. Blige sample. It's Drake returning to rapping about his come up and bragging about how far he's come. And yeah, even though Drake's been to this well dozens of times before, there's enough detail here and a couple decent lines to make it work, even though those lines are counterbalanced by platinum-like rappers on a Hershey's and a few pointless shots taken at Meek Mill. Again, Drake has made better songs in this vein, but you know what? If he's returning to his roots, if they can give us this, I guess I'll take it. It's, as I said, the best song on views. Number 53, Feel No Ways by Drake.
On purpose. Now you're throwing it back in my face. On purpose. Now you're talking down on my name. On purpose. Yeah. And you don't feel no way. You think I deserve it?
From the best song on the album, we come to one of the worst, which tries to go for a late 80s R&B vibe, but just doesn't connect the noisier lo-fi drums playing off Drake's cleaner singing, especially when the beat's gonna switch up later anyways. But what I really can't stand here are the lyrics, where Drake says because this girl wouldn't go along with doing things Drake's way, they're now over and now she's pissed off, gassed up as Drake describes it in such an eloquent way, and now she's bad-mouthing him. Gee, can't think of why. But okay, wait a minute. On most of your charting entries before views, especially Hotline Bling, didn't you want a girl who would stay home and be a good girl for you? And what I really hate here is the framing. Drake, stop framing yourself like a victim. It's not remotely romantic or believable, and it's nowhere near gonna be able to justify your douchebaggery on the song. Ugh, talk about a bad track. Next, number 52, Too Good by Drake featuring Rihanna.
You take my love for granted. I just don't understand it. No, I'm too good to you. I'm way too good to you. You take my love for granted. I just don't understand.
And to continue the let's feel sorry for Drake's romantic bitching train, we now his collaboration with Rihanna. To his credit, the fact that Rihanna is here injects the song with a more textured, tropical beat that has a little bit more punch and provides the mirror image to his arrogance. But then again, maybe it's for the best when both of them think they're just too good for each other and that this relationship just ends. And while I probably say this is more of a song than work was, it's a shame that it doesn't bother to make either of them remotely likable, with Drake coming out as worse as he tries to accuse Rihanna for playing the victim when he's doing the exact same thing. So yeah, I actually kind of like the song in context with the album, but on its own, it's not nearly as good. Man, that's exasperating. Number 49, Child's Play by Drake.
Heard all of the stories about you, I already know, and I like it. Take you to the mall and get you a new outfit. Girl, that's just some child's play. Bounce that shit like, whoa. Yeah. Bounce that shit like, whoa.
And on the topic of Drake screwing things up with women, we have this song, which opens up with a sample implying that if your girlfriend goes to a season opener basketball game, she is screwing a player on the team. You know, because women just can't like sports unless there's sex involved. Granted, the Raptors tickets in Toronto, they are expensive, and I'd be frustrated too given how they blew things in overtime last night, but you know, we're getting off topic. Actually, can I keep ranting about DeMar DeRozan and his god-awful shooting in Game 4? Because this song is rancid. I'd rather talk about that. Yeah, the bouncy sleigh bells and decent hook, but then we get to the verses, where Drake dives into soap opera horse shit with a girl he pulled out from the hood, who starts fighting with him at the Cheesecake Factory, drives his Bugatti to get tampons, and it's actually a little bit suspicious when Drake lies about the number of people he slept with. All behavior that inspires Drake to hide his keys and threaten to take her back to the hood. You know, because Drake is such a trustworthy, good boyfriend. You know, I've heard K. Michelle songs from an actual reality TV star that have more dignity and class than this disingenuous classist bullshit. And at least she'll go over the top with their melodrama. Ugh, this blows. Next, number 47, With You by Drake featuring PARTYNEXTDOOR.
It's about us right now, girl. Where are you going? I'm with you.
Drake, you keep trying to make PARTYNEXTDOOR happen with these overly auto-tuned stabs at dance floor hookups. If it wasn't gonna happen on If You're Reading This It's Too Late with Preach, a song that actually evolved and was better than this forgettable track with the only memorable part being Jeremiah's uncredited crooning, that's not gonna happen. Next, number 45, 9 by Drake.
Keeping people fed is my only peace of mind now. And I turn a 6 upside down, it's a 9 now. I made a decision last night that I would die for it.
You know, Drake, you keep saying you're ready to die for Toronto. Why don't I remotely believe any of that? And why is this song just a pale facsimile of all the bangers you shoveled out last year with a less interesting synth melody, your standard trap hi-hat, and a clumsily auto-tuned fragment for what passes as a hook here? And let me stress, this is a song that I don't really mind. It at least has a melodic progression, and even as Drake raps about his chain going jang-a-lang. Again, he's done so much better than this, and this is just kind of mediocre in the end. Number 44, You With Me by Drake.
So until we gone, and I got to know now, is you with me or what? Yeah. It's like a lot of games are being played, how's it going down? So until we gone, and I got to know now, is you with me or what?
You know, I'm starting to think that Drake conned the public into thinking that he wasn't a complete twit around women, because him DMing all his exes to tell them that they belong to him, even in a symbolic context, that's more creepy than anything else. And even though he references his supposedly real-life girlfriend in passing on this song, he spends the rest of this track trying to ascertain his side bitch's commitment to him. Dude, you're dating Serena Williams. What the hell are you playing for here? And why the hell am I supposed to care about your angst that she's not communicating with you fast enough, you creep? Angst that you communicate by saying that she's toying like a Happy Meal. Yeah, the bombast in the third verse, that is impressive after the beat switch up, but it stands out on this album because it's one of the few places on Views where Drake actually sounds like he's trying. And even then it drops into this trap touch outro with pianos that feels both dragged out and kind of abrupt. Again, another song that had some potential, but certainly doesn't do enough to come together, and that's a problem. Number 40, Still Here by Drake.
Well, dawg, you not from the city, I could tell, dawg. Did it by myself, dawg. Blew up and I'm in the city still, I'm still here, dawg. How did I finesse all of this shit from Jane and Weston? Girls all in my bed and they don't trip off first impression.
Yeah, Drake, we get that you're still here, and it's not a good sign that I tend to forget this track exists every time I listen to Views. Most because the scuzzy synth and Drake's lazy flow does nothing to make a guy like who brags about poorly investing his money and stealing girlfriends remotely interesting. It's not even that it's so bad so much as that it's just bland. I've heard you do this before, Drake, and if you don't care, why should I? Number 38, Grammys by Drake featuring Future.
They gon' think I want a Grammy. I'm sorry now they can't stand me. I'm sorry now they can't stand me. I'm swerving off, they can't stand me. I work off, can't stand me. They gon' think I want a Grammy. They gon' think I want a Grammy. They gon' think I want a Grammy. They gon' think I want a Grammy.
Oh look, it's a leftover from What a Time to Be Alive, and it's not a good one. At least that album had some sparkle and glitz to it, something that this bass swamped out generic trap banger does not have. At least Future sounds like he's having fun as he spits your generic Future verse, although I do question him not wanting features when this itself is a feature from him. But again, at least he's having fun not caring. In comparison with Drake, who cares way too much about being top 5. Yeah, Drake, you wish. Number 34, Controlla by Drake.
I think I die for you. Jodeci cry for you. Do things when you want me to. Like Controlla. Yeah, like Controlla. Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't talked much about Drake hopping on this Caribbean accent, and while of course he's unconvincing in it, I think the bigger issue ties in how he tries to assert that he's an aggressive controller and dominant for this girl through his gentle auto-tuned croon against a completely desaturated mix plus sample plus air horn, and then whining about girls who don't want to see him happy. Geez, after what we heard today, I can't think of why, Drake. Number 33, Hype by Drake.
I had to count it, then count it again to make sure the money was right. They love to talk. Me, I'm just done in the hype. Me, I'm just done in the hype. Me, I'm just done.
Okay, here's a confession. I had to put all these songs back on my iPod to re-listen to them for this episode of Billboard Breakdown. And given that we're now on the final Drake track and I've practically re-listened to the whole damn thing again, I can say this with certainty that I'll be taking all these songs off again, because I only found more things that didn't work about this album in the individual pieces. At least we're ending off with a banger, muted twinkle, stale trap beat with real bars where Drake says he's in blacking after a Michael Jackson reference, how he he got his epiphany at Tiffany's after spending $50,000, kick, that's substantial. How he hasn't run out of material, see this album. Or how his hook completely kills any momentum that he might have from his previous verse. There's no hype coming from this. So yeah. That's Views. It was mediocre at best. Expect over half this album to fall off the charts in record times because most of this, it sucks. Number 20, Holy by Florida Georgia Line.
Holy, holy, I'm high on loving you. High on loving you. You're holy, 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 holy. I'm high on loving you. High on loving you.
I heard about the controversy surrounding this song long before I heard the track itself, and rumors suggesting that it was indicative of a new trend coming up in country, drawing on religious phrasing and iconography to refer to less religious things in the actual subject matter. Now let's make this clear, this is nothing all that new, especially outside of country music when you look at acts like Hozier or Depeche Mode or Nick Cave, or really the majority of gothic-themed acts, or even outside of that, look at Debbie Boom. But even within country, I'm not exactly against it on principle, as Maren Morris's My Church drew upon some soulful production and smart songwriting to recontextualize what faith meant to her, which is more of the music. Florida Georgia Line, on the other hand, used it for a punishingly stiff piano bow with gratuitous autotune on the backing vocals, described the heavenly girl who saved them from heartbreak, which I'm gonna choose to think is Rachel Platten from when she made Stand By You. Sad fact is that she's even probably better than this. As then we get to the second verse, these guys getting the girls screaming hallelujah when they touch them, and wow, I don't buy that for a second. And sure, this is embarrassing, but at least their previous songs used to be a facsimile of country music. This is just bad pop that's way too stiff and uses its title as an acronym to mean High on Loving You. Gross. Skip this. And finally, number 9, This Is What You Came For by Calvin Harris featuring Rihanna. And so we end this week on the precipice of boredom itself with Calvin Harris. Now, I usually say that's not quite that fair as he evolved since his interchangeable blast of synth that cluttered up the early 2000s and that you've all pretty much forgotten. But the truth is, I just don't care at this point. And this song is here because of name recognition for he and Rihanna alone, not because the song is actually good. And look, I didn't like either of Rihanna's previous collaborations with Calvin Harris either, We Found Love and Where Have You Been, but at least Rihanna sounded like she cared on both those songs, and as much as I don't like We Found Love, it had a hell of a hook. This? Rihanna's on autopilot, the thicker synths and the crescendo break into another rattling tropical beat that's more hazy claps and vocal fragments than instrumental melody, and it barely has any sort of actual punch to it. It's not really something I could dance to, even in an EDM sense. At least when Zedd brought in Kesha, you got a singer who actually cares about what she's singing and isn't gonna croon about a song that I'm guessing Taylor Swift refused to even do as a favor to her boyfriend on account of being way too bland. But you know what, considering this week, no, I'm still gonna forget this. Pass. So this week went on entirely too long, and man, so much of it was a wasteland devoid of quality. For best, thank God Zedd and Kesha showed up to add in some passion with True Colors take the top spot. And I'll guess I'd give honorable mention to Weston Road Flows by Drake for being the best track off of Views, although that's not really saying much. But the worst, I honestly can't think of whether Child's Play or Feel No Ways is worse, so they're gonna tie for this week. With dishonorable mention going to H.O.L.Y by Florida Georgia Line for some atrocious production in that second verse. Right now, I'm just thankful that most of this crap will be gone for next week, or at least I hope so. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.